And away we go. It's the DFS Alert presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. More on that momentarily. Dan Strafford and Eric McPherson. You know him better as your old pal EMAC, coming to you live. No, that's not true. Coming to you on a Wednesday morning. No, it's a Tuesday morning. See, things get screwed up when Dan fills it for Adam Scher. I'm having some fun here, EMAC. We're ready to rock and roll. Tuesday morning, 12-game main slate. We're going to forego those early games and focus on the main one. How the hell are you doing, EMAC?
I'm good. I hope everybody had a safe and sane holiday weekend here. Kids are going to be starting back to school here on Tuesday if they haven't started already. This is kind of the final day for everybody to be back. And here we are. We're on a little vacation here ourselves and skipping East Coast traffic for one more day. So we'll drive home on Wednesday morning. We've learned the hard way, Dan. I-95 and the various iterations, 295, 495, yada, yada, yada. Not fun. 395, all the little offshoots are horrid. No matter if you're going up to Ocean City, New Jersey, or if you're coming down to
I mean, it's the same all the way up to Maine, dude. Like, 95 is a no-go for me. I don't care what Waze or Google Maps is saying. I will not touch 95 in Connecticut, especially. I love many people who live in Connecticut. Your state sucks when it comes to traffic. It is dreadful. We made the trip down to New Jersey Thursday into Friday, and then came back Sunday for that express reason that I didn't want to deal with Monday traffic. I couldn't deal with it. So we visited my mom and her husband. We came back on Sunday, got home around 7, and then Chris and I recorded Sunday. I will remind everyone, it seems as though Dorian has stalled in the Bahamas. And if we have any listeners in the Bahamas, hope everyone is doing well. If you're in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, don't be dumb. Listen to elected officials. This is my PSA. I'm a father. I'm a grown-ass man telling you, listen to people who tell you to get out of the way of a Category 5, 4 storm, whatever it may be. With that said, I do want to remind you, Yahoo DFS, it's here, EMAC. I've been saying this for about 6 weeks now, but NFL Week 1 is upon us. We have the management fee free every damn time I get that wrong. Management fee free tournament, $25, 10 max, $1 million in prize pool. You do also have a $10, 12% management fee over there as well. Check it out. Different scoring, different lineup construction. You need to understand the scoring. I will say that again and again. You can't just port things over from DK or FD and think that you're going to be golden. Take the time to look at it. Take the time to register and deposit if you so choose, and you get over there and play. I know, EMAC, you've been playing a lot of baseball over there. I assume you'll be playing some NFL there as well. Is that the correct assumption on my part?
Absolutely. I will actually be this Friday. The Yahoo DFS MLB article is turning into the NFL article for the rest of the NFL season. Started doing that last year. We'll start out with week 1 this year. I had some success in that management fee-free tournament. Took down about $1,200 one of the weeks that they had it, about $400 the other weeks, and then was essentially break even the rest of the time. But hey, all it takes is 1 or 2 good weeks. I'm very excited for this $1 million baller tournament. 10 entry max is the golden ticket right there. I don't know if they're going to fill it. You need a lot of gamers to, even at $25 a pop, so $250 a piece. Is it like 40,000 people they need to get in there? I don't know. I'm not doing the math, but let's do the math.
Oh, this is riveting podcasting.
Oh,
anytime.
4,000. I'm sorry. It's 4. They would need 4,000.
Anytime we can do math, and I mean math by like multiplication live on a podcast, I am game for that. Well done on your part. Listen, if you are new to DFS or you are a low stakes player, and I am a low stakes player, I'm not new to DFS. I hope everyone's aware of that, but I'm a low stakes player. I play a handful of dollars, maybe in NFL, I'll get up into the hundreds, $200, depending on the slate. Yahoo and Fantasy Draft and these other smaller sites is where you build your bankroll. It's where you take the time to build it up and understand the scoring there and get the nuance and maybe have a bit of an edge comparatively to DK and FD, where the Sharks are. And it's not meant to be, oh, don't play on DK. Play there, absolutely. But take the time to check out Yahoo, check out these other sites, because that's where you can build up your bankroll. And then if you want to port it over, if you want to bring it over to DK and try to win the Millie Maker or whatever it might be, or FanDuel with their $1 million prize pool, great. Absolutely, that's on you. But I do think it's worthwhile. Baseball, basketball, and football to understand what these other sites have to offer. I will also say there's a couple of new sites popping up. Understand their deposit bonus, the deposit bonuses, understand who's backing them. Take the time at this point in DFS to make sure your money's going to somewhere you trust and that you understand. This is not about anyone in specific, but just understand where you're depositing and where your money's going to go. With all that said, we have a 12-game Major League Baseball slate. Emac and I are going to go through the pitching on this slate. We'll typically get through about halfway to three-quarters of the way, and then we'll turn it to talking a little bit more about offense. Maybe there's a cheap option or two that we can target to get up to the top-tier guys, talking DK. I have FanDuel open, I have DraftKings open, I have Yahoo open. So we'll talk about all three pricing at different points. We're going to use DraftKings as our jumping-off point, though. That's where we're going to really use as our price points and matchup-wise to figure things out. Our good friend and Adam Scher is a contributor, obviously, over at Awesemo.com. He writes the Deep Dive Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. He co-hosts the Deeper Dive, or I guess he's the analyst on the Deeper Dive with Dave Lochran and sometimes Alex Baker. You know him as Awesemo. Loves Mike Clevenger. His love for Mike Clevenger has gone on for more than 12 months now, and for Adam to love anything for that long is a significant milestone in Adam's life. But Clevenger here, EMAC, 12-2, gets a matchup with the Chicago White Sox. We've talked time and time again about how this offense is not very good. There's not a ton of power. There's a ton of Ks. Clevenger has been more than dynamic on the season. He has been a strikeout machine. He's produced 20-plus points on DK pretty consistently. Any reason to fade Mike Clevenger other than price point on DraftKings for this slate?
No, and I think that you hit it right there. The key is other than price point. That's what it comes down to. He's got one of the best strikeout rates against righties and lefties. I'm just calling up my little sheet here. Oops, that doesn't work. Sorry, I should have highlighted those colors. Now we're talking riveting here because I've got my.
Now we're into Excel. Like we went from math to Excel, not propagating properly. That's fantastic.
So since the beginning of last year, 33.5% strikeout rate against righties, 25% against lefties, about 570-ish of each. So definitely better righty-righty matchup, but that's to be expected. This season, those numbers have been even better. I still like to use the longer track record, but if we just go by this season, he has been phenomenal. Now, he did miss an earlier portion of the year due to injury, but now this is one of the matchups we want to go target for. The White Sox will get their DH back. They didn't have it their last few games because they were touring through the National League parks, but this is still one where if you're going to spend, Clevenger is probably where you want to go. There is no Coors Field on the slate. There are some interesting spots where we can target against some bad pitchers, but we also have a lot of good pitchers on this one. But Clevenger is on FanDuel, 12,000, DeGrom 10.7, Scherzer 10.5, Greinke 10.2, Flaherty, I don't know, Flaherty's really spendy on all the sites, but he's 10,000. Clevenger there really stands out as being not quite a bridge too far, but potentially. The one thing you're going to want to remember is it's September, Dan, which means September call-ups.
Yep.
Which means two things. One, we have a lot of cheap guys because they are on the 40-man active roster now. They can be moved in to the lineups up in the big leagues and not have to worry about the designated people for assignment, putting people on the injured list, et cetera. The other thing is magically, yesterday and today, everybody became healthy. All these guys that we hadn't seen for months are all of a sudden Brandon Nimmo, Jay Bruce, all these guys are just showing up. It's because, again, they don't have to make a transaction, and these guys are going to be pinch hitters or spot starters, giving other of the regulars the day off down the stretch. But what that's going to do is it's going to free things up, and unless the sites really start to tighten things, it's going to make pricing really not matter. So I'm glad to see they've done some expensive stuff with the pitchers today across the board. I don't think it will be enough because I'm sure there'll be two minimum price guys out there on once the lineups are announced on Tuesday that we can help facilitate anything we need. But it's just something to keep in mind that you don't want to see in a vacuum and say, oh my God, these guys are so expensive. Well, they are at the moment, but we've got reinforcements coming over the ridge. So.
I just appreciate that you got to my storyline before I did of September call-ups, just muddying the waters here, of just getting to a point where a guy like Clevenger, a guy like a Clayton Kershaw or a Scherzer, these are guys who are going to be at least considered for a shorter leash. Now, Will they go 110 pitches? Absolutely possible. But the probability of that does get diminished because of the size of the bullpen, the size of the opposing bench, matchups, because all of a sudden these games, quote unquote, matter more. They don't. They all matter exactly the same, but managers tend to manage differently this time of year. I've said forever, I'd much rather see expanded rosters to start the year, push back the start of the minor league season, expand rosters in April and even into May, and then whittle it down to 25. Give them the exposure early in the year, not this time of year, because one, it kills fantasy baseball from a season-long perspective in a lot of ways, and secondarily, I just think it messes with too many pennant races at this time of year where managers just think weirdly differently. So I would love to see roster expansion start the year. With all that said, though, Clevenger is cheaper than Scherzer over on Yahoo. He's at $55, $60 for Scherzer. We'll talk about that momentarily. Yeah, Scherzer at 11.7, DeGrom at 11, Flaherty at 10.5, and then Greinke goes below. I love Clevenger. I have to admit that I'm going to try to find every way to roster him on this slate, and that may end up being not necessarily the case because of price point, because of having to get some offensive players in there. Scherzer, DeGrom, Flaherty. It would seem Flaherty, I know he's, as you said, spendy, but San Francisco away, I get that they're not in Oracle Park, but that's a hell of a matchup for Flaherty. Any of these other three pitchers above 10K, Flaherty, Scherzer, and of course, Jacob DeGrom against the Nationals. Are you in on any of them, or do you feel like you'd prefer to find a cheaper option?
So Scherzer, it's going to be no. I'd be surprised if he goes more than 100 pitches because the Nationals are leading the wild card. They are not going to catch Atlanta, so therefore they are going to be playing a one-game play-in. Because let's be honest, that's all the wild card is. It's not like it was when they first did it and you got a whole series. It's all luck, and they're going to need him to start in that game. So I don't think they push him too much. I mean, plan B and C are Corbin and Strasburg, and God, those guys have been good this year too. It's just that Scherzer is the guy. So I just don't – I see everything lining up for them to get him ready to make that start in the beginning of October. So I have really no interest in him. On the other side, as we go down, Flaherty's kind of interesting, and you made a good point because that's just – it's like, while I said he's expensive – in relation to the matchup, we know there's going to be some savings, et cetera. Perhaps he is the guy. How much do you trust him? I mean, we don't have a huge track record with him. I was going to call him up here. But as I'm doing that, he's going against sorry, I can't talk and look. Not having two screens is a pain, Dan. I will say that when you get so used to it.
Uh-huh. Oh, absolutely.
But Flaherty has he's got decent – lefty righty mix, not really over since the beginning of last season. He does better against righties, but he's not horrible against lefties, which is the key, because that's the one thing that San Francisco still can do is they can get very platoon heavy just based on their roster. They can go with six lefties, or they can go with six righties at a moment's notice. It's not that hard. That's really not going to impact him as much as it would say, most of the Cincinnati pitchers or some of the other guys out there. So I think he's going to be fine in this matchup, and it's someone where I think we can look towards him. We'll have to see what the what the implied run total is as we get lineups announced. Currently, it's sitting at 3.2. That's phenomenal. It is going to be close to 90 degrees in St. Louis. There is a wind. There's actually a wind blowing out in most stadiums tomorrow, which is just kind of bizarre. But there's a wind going out between 6 and 9 miles per hour to center field in St. Louis. It's going to be 60% humidity. So that's better hitting weather. But still, I mean, we're looking at Yastrzemski, Longoria, Dickerson, Belt, Posey, no power, Pilar, maybe, Brandon Crawford. He only does the troll lefty home runs when you need it the least. So I think Flaherty's going to be the guy that if you're spending, it's going to be him. Jacob DeGrom right next to him, tough matchup against the Nationals. I do want to point out this will be the fourth time he has faced them. In 17 innings against the Nationals, he has 25 strikeouts. He's held the Nationals to a 1.78 batting average against, along with a .53 ERA and a .94 whip. Yes, the rare whip higher than the ERA against a good team. What will that mean for Monday? Or, pardon me, what will that mean for Tuesday? Not a ton, but it's nice to see he's at least handled them. So that puts him squarely in the mix for tournament play. Zach Greinke, I'm going to say no for him. Yes, Revenge, one of the many teams he's played for there in Milwaukee, but he's got just not the strikeout upside. It's funny if you listen to Adam and Lofty talk about it, you've probably mentioned it as well. His fastball and his changeup are like literally the same.
It's absurd. I was talking to Adam about that.
90, neither one over 87.
I was talking to Adam about I brought it up on the podcast. I was like, dude, did you see that it was 88 mile an hour changeup? And he goes, oh, okay, sure. I was like, his fastball was 87. And Adam doesn't typically go completely mute on a show. And he looked at me. He goes, "You're kidding." I was like, "No, quite literally. You look at the pitch grip and you look at the tail on them, and one's a fastball and one's clearly a changeup, but the changeup is thrown harder than the fastball. It makes no physical or logical sense."
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, it's almost at this point like he's not Greg Maddux, but he's kind of like Greg Maddux at this point. He's not Jamie Moyer, obviously, because he's not a lefty, but he kind of is. Who's there? I had another good example. Moyer. Livan Hernandez. They called him the mathematician when he was here with the Nationals because it was literally the end of his career. They called him the mathematician because he could drop his fastball was like literally 85, but he could throw his changeup looking very similar to the fastball, but he could drop 12 miles an hour off it if he wanted to. Not every time, but if you wanted to. It wasn't an eephus, but it was just like, they're like, oh, there it was.
Well, no, it was El Duque too. Livan Hernandez and Orlando Hernandez. El Duque Hernandez for the Yankees did that a lot, where all of a sudden his fastball would be 82 miles an hour, and you'd look at it and be like, that's not right. Like, what are you doing? And then he'd throw a curveball that was 65, and then a fastball that was 89, and no one could catch up to it. But baseball, in a nutshell, that's why I love baseball. That is the fun of the game, and what maybe sometimes analytics and statistics can't fully vouch for when all is said and done is, and this is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but the guile of a pitcher, right? The sort of, I'm going to figure this out and figure it out on the fly on the mound, are things that we can't always figure out ourselves when trying to project these sort of games. But you get to Greinke against Milwaukee. Fiers gets the Angels. I'm not a Mike Fiers fan, and the Angels are a team I can't really consider. Then we get into a really weird territory here, Mac, because you have guys like John Lester against Seattle. We've targeted Seattle many times over, but Lester has struggled at times this year. You get Foltynewicz against Toronto, and that's another team that we've targeted. But Foltynewicz, going down to the minors, was pretty rocky. Since coming back up, he's been much better. Against the Mets a couple of weeks ago, he was fantastic. As you look at his game logs, he's gone back and forth, sort of oscillated from being a really dominant pitcher that we saw in 2018 and being terrible again last time out. 2 earned runs, but just 4 2/3, 8 hits against, just 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. This mid-tier is a bit of a mess, but I do feel as though there's some upside. I do feel as though there's some pitchers in here who give us some K upside and some price point upside on DK specifically. We'll touch on Yahoo and FanDuel momentarily. What are you targeting here? Is it a name like a John Lester? Is it someone like Foltynewicz, or do you go all the way down to someone like Urias at 6,400 as talent and matchup that could give you some upside?
So Lester's actually interesting. 8,400 on DK, relatively fair. It's because it's the Mariners. Now, they don't have a lot of righties. Everybody's hurt. They traded away a bunch of people. So essentially their righties tomorrow are going to be, my guess would be Tom Murphy catching, Tim Lopes, and then I don't even know. Then some fourth outfielder or some middle infielder. You're going to see Vogelbach probably playing first. Kyle Seager has to play third. Malik Smith has to play the outfield. D. Gordon will play second base. So you're really playing around with an outfield spot or 2 that you can put other righties in. They don't have them. Now here's where the call-ups may help, but even then, these guys are AAA hitters for the Mariners. Come on, they would have been up if they were any good at this point. And I am a lifelong Mariners fan, so I like Lester. Funny enough, Lester just killed them the last time he faced them, because this is one of those rare home and home. They'll play each other once every 5 years series, if it's even that often. But that, again, neither here nor there. But I am okay with Lester. He's somebody I usually don't go with. but just because of the way the Mariners lineup is, their hand is forced. We don't have an implied run total. The one hard part, there is a 13 to 15 mile an hour wind going out to right.
Right.
Now, that doesn't help the righties. That would help the lefties, but the lefties are going against Lester, so that'd be lefty-lefty. So we'll have to see what that is in as we get closer to the game. So he's okay. Fultonevich, I don't know what to do with him. He went down to the minors. He's back up. I'd prefer not to, but he is 7,500, and we need some pitchers. I would actually rather go with Sandy Alcantara than Fultonevich, even though he's going against Pittsburgh, and Fulte gets Toronto, who will be without the DH. The interesting thing about Toronto, and we've talked about this on various combinations of our shows, they have amazing. Obviously, the what is it? I don't want to say the bloodlines. What would we say? The talent, the hereditary. Let's go with the bloodlines. Why not? They all have connections to their dads that have played.
Bloodlines is right. What other word were you looking for?
Not thoroughbred, purebred. No, none of those. Heredity. Perhaps I have got another word in there. Lineage. I'm missing
lineage.
out.
Lineage works. Lineage.
I'll think of it as I'm trying to fall asleep.
Also, a very good, solid Netflix show if you're looking for something to binge. So you got it all.
There we go. But we've talked about how boom bust they are. I mean, totally. You've got Bo Bichette, not to be confused with the Mandalorian, but he set a record there for most hits in a month by a rookie.
Keep going.
That was a good one. I haven't seen the movie, but Adam wouldn't have got that.
No. That was one.
I don't think half of our listeners got
it. I would say 95%.
In any event, but they got no hit by Justin Verlander. Come on, this team they had 6 home runs a few games ago. And all of a sudden, they got no hit by Verlander. But we've talked about they're inconsistent. Most of their guys have 1 or 2 years under their belt. Literally, that's it. So who knows what's going to happen, and now they lose the DH. Okay, Fulte's in play. I don't like it, but he's in play. Sorry, I got to get back to this here. Lyles, no thank you. Max Keller going against Miami. I'm actually very intrigued by it.
Mitch Keller.
Oh, Mitch Keller. Oh, God. Who's Max Keller? I have no idea.
Max Kellerman might be who you're thinking of.
That would be nobody puts baby in the corner, but it's true. Nobody does put baby in the corner.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
Hey, did you know it's the 30th anniversary of Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue? When we were driving, we were listening to Hair Nation or the 80s channel or whatever it was. And
it's only 30 years? Like, genuinely, that
3-0.
That feels like it should be 40.
Oh, that hurts, Dan.
I trust me, I get it, but.
All right. But back to Mitch.
I guess I'm 37. That makes sense. It all makes sense. Fine.
Back to Mitch Keller.
Yes, Mitchy.
Yeah, Mitch Kramer. Mitchy. Dazed and Confused. We've got also now Adam would get that one. He's watched that movie. But we've got 91 pitches, 99 pitches, 93 pitches, 94 pitches. I like it. Price per pitch, plus he's going against Miami. I'm in. I would prefer him to Fulte. Now, what has he done for us lately? Yikes, not a lot. He's been very up and down, but he does have strikeout ability. So here's his strikeout ability: 8 in the last game. That's awesome. He also allowed 8 runs in that game. So that's the Nuke LaLoosh approach.
Yes.
How many more movies can we get to?
I'm happening. I'm hoping for a lot more. I will be quite honest. I think, and Bull Durham obviously was that last reference for those of you who are scoring at home. Or as Keith Olbermann used to say, if you're scoring at home or even if you're by yourself, hope you are listening here to the DFS Early Bird from Osmo.com. I will remind you, Yahoo helping support our podcast here and line me and Amax pockets with Bitcoin. They just pay us regularly with Bitcoin. I'm kidding, of course. But nonetheless, check out their DFS offerings. I mentioned at the top, tons for the NFL. Also, as the MLB season winds down, they'll continue to have management-free Fridays, it would seem.
They actually have one for Tuesday for baseball.
There you go.
It's posted. So that'll be a good one. 10 entry max, $3. It's 1,500 people. So 4,500 in, 4,500 out. This will fill. Usually, since it's kind of a half holiday tomorrow, I say, because some people will be back at work, other people will be finishing up their vacations. It'll probably fill around 2 or 3 o'clock, but it most likely will fill. But you can definitely jump into that. They also have, when they haven't been running that one, they've been running a $3 one that's just 10.4% management fee instead of their usual 12, which, by the way, is way less than everybody else's 15.9. So just putting that one out there. We'll talk about their pricing because they got some interesting stuff there towards the end. Julio Urias. I can't go there. I don't know who he's going to pitch.
Well, it's 2 to 3 innings.
Maybe
it's 2 to 3 innings. We're getting 45 to 50 pitches from him, and he's the sort of guy. If he was 4,500, I think there's legitimate discussion around his talent, and he could have 5 strikeouts in 50 pitches. Like he's a legitimate talent in that way. Now he's had the struggles with. He had shoulder issues. He didn't have outlet surgery, did he? Is that what he had?
Thoracic outlet. I don't remember.
Either way, he had
off the field issues too.
Well, yeah, there's that. He's now off the restricted list and back for the Dodgers. And take that for what it's worth, if that matters to you, and I don't begrudge you if it does. But he's 64. You get Dylan Cease at 6,300, a guy who I've struggled to understand on the year. I get that people have enjoyed discussing his upside, but he hasn't shown me anything at the major league level to make me believe he's ready to compete. I think it's a White Sox arm that they're just getting him used to. MLB action. You have Berea at 58. Hernandez, also formerly known as King Felix, at 5,500 against the Cubs. Seems like a prime spot for the Cubs to go off. But we get down to some of these names in the cheaper end, and I at least want to recognize Margevicius at 4,600 was somebody that you and I talked about early on in the season, somebody that kind of had the upside and people were raving about end of last year, beginning of this year as potentially having a significant play in that San Diego rotation. And Mike Montgomery is 4,300, and I get that he's not been very good as a starter, but the quote-unquote stuff has been there from a floor perspective, like giving us just enough to have an understanding of who he is and get to match up with Detroit. And I get that Miguel Cabrera hit a home run on Monday, and I get that there's some downside to it. But Montgomery's been pretty darn good as a starter for the Royals, and he's still just 4,300. Am I missing something here on DraftKings?
So Montgomery, I'm absolutely fine with. He's going against Detroit. We're going to get mid-90s in pitches, and let's set the over-under at 3.5 strikeouts. Yeah, 4 games ago he got 12. Wait for it, against this very same Detroit team. But in the 3 starts since then, he has a total of 12. And that includes the Mets, Baltimore, and Oakland. So strikeouts are really not his calling card. But 4,300, yeah, he'll probably be on a third of my teams. That's just the way it's going to be. You've got Dylan Cease, who is absolutely a mess. There's a joke in there about Cease, and there's a good.
That's. I mean, for it to be a joke, typically it's funny, Emac, and that was.
It's too much. So here, we don't need the joke. Here's the actual facts. If this doesn't make you laugh, I don't know what will. So on his thus far this season, he has allowed 13 home runs in 62 innings. Yikes. He has a 6.9 ERA. I said in my article in the write-up, the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article, that the line of a 5.9 implied run total for Cleveland feels disrespectful for Cleveland. Cease has allowed a 431 WOBA and a 306 ISO. Yes, that's 306 ISO to lefties. To righties, it's 342 and 222. So, yeah, just target Cleveland in this one. And the wind's also blowing out there. Check that one. I looked at 2 different sources, and they had it going in opposite directions, but it could be 10 to 12 miles an hour towards the outfield. So double check that one. Usually by this time of the year, all the different weather sites actually have home plate in the right spot, and they know which way it's going.
Cleveland minus 301 on the money line right now, over under of 9. So I don't have implied run totals in front of me, but I would guess that the White Sox are 5.9 and what, 3.2 or 3.1 for the White Sox?
It's 3.2. It doesn't quite add up, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it never does. Thanks, Vegas. Teaching kids not to do math from an early age. I think Cleveland makes a ton of sense here. I think we can transition talking about a bit of offense. Actually, let's do this instead.
We got two more because we got to talk about Jaime Barria. Way worse against righties, against righties. Somehow he survived in his last start. Didn't give up a home run. Basically, he's given up multiple home runs in 5 of 6 coming into this game, or 5 of 7. Didn't give up a home run to Houston of all teams, but that was the anomaly. Go ahead and target Oakland hitters. You also mentioned Fernandez. 5,500. I'm scared. I don't want to do that because though if the wind's going out to right, that's going to help lefty hitters, which is not going to do Felix Hernandez any favors. So even at 5,500, I can't get there. Nick Margevicius is back. He actually pitched in relief. Oh, he actually pitched today. Haha. So he's
okay.
In the mix. But if he pops up, don't play him. He got sent back down to the minors because he was so bad. And in the minors, he's had a 5+ ERA since he's been sent.
Undecided listed now. DK and FanDuel already listing him, but that will get corrected overnight as you listen to this amazing podcast. So.
Yeah, but those will be so down on the cheap end. And then you've got Randy Dobnak. He's not stretched out enough to consider. And then Chichi Gonzalez, who literally over his last 4 appearances in the majors has negative fantasy points. That's hard to do.
I mean, I could do that.
Three of those starts were not in Coors Field, for those of you saying, oh, yeah, it's in Coors Field. No, actually, 3 of them weren't. In his last start in Coors Field, he allowed 7 runs on 27 pitches.
Amazing. Let's quickly hit on Yahoo, Emac. We've touched on DK. I want to touch a little bit on Yahoo, our sponsor here on the podcast. And we'll touch on offense. Emac sprinkled some in there, and I think we touched on some of the higher end stacks. But if we hit on Yahoo, and I'm going to run through the prices quickly here. You all can follow along at home. Scherzer at 60, Clevenger at 55, Flaherty's at 50, DeGrom 49, Greinke at 47. Fires, no thanks. Kenta Maeda. Is it Maeda or Urias? Well, why is Yahoo showing Maeda? Let's see. Oh, he's moved to the bullpen, and he's expected to be right.
Yeah.
That's why. So he's probably following Urias, which is actually an interesting play here. He's $38 on – let's see if he's actually going to follow or not. He's $8,800 on DK, still a high price point on DK. That's an interesting one from an ownership perspective to keep an eye on. If we're just getting 40 pitches out of Urias – and Maeda is meant to be the actual long reliever there out of the bullpen, I don't know if that's the case or not. I haven't seen anything to specifically say so. That becomes an interesting ownership / matchup play because Colorado is terrible away from Coors Field. I would at least consider that as a further point. But if we roll on here, you get Mike Montgomery, you get Fulton Nevich at $35, Lester's $33, Mitch Keller, 33 as well. Are those price points that start to get a little bit enticing with Lester and Keller for you?
Yeah, so just running down the Yahoo one real quick, Clevenger becomes a very nice play at 55. Flaherty, not quite as nice at 50. I would then drop all the way down to Montgomery, and I would not play him at 37. I would actually play Fulton Nevich at 35. So on Yahoo, I much prefer Fulton Nevich. Montgomery is half of Fulton Nevich's price, not quite on DraftKings. So Montgomery becomes the play there. Stay away from Daniel Norris. He's only going to go about 3 innings. Lester, very intriguing at 33. Mitch Keller, very intriguing at 33. Merrill Kelly, no. You actually want to look to the Padres righties with power because Kelly has allowed more home runs to righties, and he has just been an absolute mess lately. Everything is catching up to him at this point, and it's a wonder because he's a 30-year-old rookie who spent 5 years in the minors, never made it, and spent 5 years in Korea before starting this year. So no surprise that he's not doing well. Sandy Alcantara at 30, very interesting. At this level, we know we're going to get close to 100 pitches from him. I'm okay with that, and then that's about where my interest runs out. So we've got 4 really decent choices there with Flaherty, with Clevenger up at the top, Fulte kind of with Lester and Keller as your 3 midpoint guys, and then you can drop down for some savings for Alcantara.
And I will say this, EMAC made mention before, I sort of waxed nostalgic on it a little bit as well. With September call-ups and with playoffs not far away, I know it's just 4 weeks, scratches are going to happen. So be prepared for NBA-style sort of scratches over the next 4 weeks. Be prepared for the lineup, but also pitchers. So if a pitcher wakes up and has a cold, they might get scratched. If they wake up and sneeze and their back twinges, they might get scratched. So just be near your lineup when lock happens. This isn't meant to say forgo family time and ignore the little ones and lock it. No, it means just be aware that sometimes things can go a little bit awry, and especially in September when these managers have so many options to go to.
And pinch runners.
Well,
Dan.
I mean, that's a mess.
Javi Baez, you know what? Take it easy. We got this one, even though he has speed. Matt Olson, you know what? Have a seat. We're going to put this kid in. Cody Bellinger, you know what? You're looking a little slow today. We're going to pinch run for you.
Well, it's even like
happen.
In the fifth, you get the pitcher on base in a National League game, and they pinch run, and then you pinch run, and you're like, well, you're up 3-1 already. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk offenses quickly, and then we'll close it out. We talked about Cleveland already. I'm right there with you. Honestly, that's a team that sort of, as I scrolled through and tried to figure out where I thought I would lean the most, I thought that might be where I have the most ownership, whether I go a 1 through 4, 1 through 5, or whatever number on the stack. I think the Indians stand out a decent amount. Boston against Dobnik could be intriguing depending on their ownership. This is a kid who comes up because, you're dealing with Kyle Gibson with ulcerative colitis. You don't like to see that for anyone, let alone a major league pitcher. So this is going to be a bullpen game, most likely, for the Twins. A decent bullpen. They've been a good team on the year, but this should be a Boston offense that has some upside. The Dodgers against Chichi Gonzalez. What do you like? What are some of the other offenses that you think at least should be higher owned on Tuesday's slate?
Dodgers going against Chichi is good. Kansas City, they're going to go against Daniel Norris. Once Norris is out, it looks like it's going to be Drew Verhagen. Both those guys Norris is just, he's bad. He's going to go 3 innings. Verhagen's probably going to go 3. And then if they get to anybody else in the bullpen, they have a bottom 3 ERA, FIP, xFIP, and home run per 9. So I said, let's look towards the Kansas City Royals. Now, who the hell are we going to play for the Royals? Well, by the way, in case you haven't been paying attention, and most of us in DFS haven't, Jorge Soler's second in the AL for home runs. He's got like 37 or 38. Whit Merrifield's pretty good. Hunter Dozier's pretty good. And Adalberto Mondesi is back. Dan, did you see what he did in his first game back on Sunday?
I did not.
4 for 5 with 3 stolen bases. Did you know that just has him 5 stolen bases behind Malik Smith for the league lead?
Oh, the stolen base has gone the way of...
Yeah, but don't you want to be the guy that has the crown? So he's off and running. That's the point. It's Adalberto Mondesi. He's going to get 10 more steals between now and the end of the season, if not 15, is my guess.
That seems reasonable. I dig it. And Kansas City's not a team that typically goes higher owned. We look at quickly, do I have a line on minus 129 in favor of Kansas City, 9.5 over under. So there is some upside there for this Kansas City lineup. Anybody else before we bid adieu?
Cardinals going against Pudge Rodriguez's kid, Derek Rodriguez. That's not going to be fun for him. Oakland against Barria, we mentioned. That'll do it, Dan. That'll get us there.
Yeah. The Cardinals were the other team that I was going to mention before we said so long. As we talk through each and every episode, remind you that I didn't know he was the son of Ivan Rodriguez. You just taught me something about Derek Rodriguez. Look at that.
Really?
Here's the thing.
Pedigree. That was what I was looking for. Pedigree. I just had to find another kid whose father was on my early rotisserie teams.
Well, that's the funny thing. So I started playing, and listen, everyone who's listening at this point,
God love you for listening.
Yeah, EMAC and I have been very upfront and honest about our season-long fantasy teams, and Seth if you're listening, one, I have a foot problem that I need to talk to you about. But two, God bless you for listening. But Ivan Rodriguez, I took in my second ever points league fantasy draft because I was trying to do positional scarcity. Like I tried to, this is back in 1999, maybe 2000, maybe even 98. I'm trying to remember the exact year. But no, it was 99, 2000. It was somewhere in there. I took him because of positional scarcity. I took him in the first round. I was like, yeah, I'm a genius. He was fine, but he was also a catcher. He was also playing 125, 130 games. Not the best decision I ever made. Did not know Derek Rodriguez was his kid, but learned something new every day. His nickname apparently is D-Rod. I doubt that. I think Baseball Reference is just trying to make him feel better about his life. But nonetheless, EMAC, folks can find you over on Twitter at EMAC DFS, but they can find you in Slack chat if they so choose to join Osmo Premium, which is known as Osmo Plus. If you do that, you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD, gets you in for 50% off your first month of content at Osmo, and we're right at that sweet spot where you get MLB, NFL, and NBA is not too far off. Not to say you'll get it in that first month, but you get a ton of content. NBA not far away. You get Adam and EMAC. You get Lofty. You get Fast Eddie Fear is lurking somewhere in the hinterlands of Slack chat and ready to rock and roll there as well. And then you get to all the other guys, Jake and Josh, and on down the line as we talk NBA. But NFL right here, right now, you've seen hopefully some of the announcements over at Osmo_com about new folks who are coming online at Osmo for NFL season. And of course, you got the DFS Early Bird, the number one top DFS podcast in the world. I'm going to say that because I can. It just is. I don't need any reference points. I don't need any sort of metrics. I'm just going to say this is the best damn podcast out there for daily fantasy content. As I said, EMAC DFS on Twitter, at Dan Stratford for myself, at Osmo_com. And tomorrow morning, you'll hear from Dave Lochran at Lofty_D. If you didn't know, that's LOUGHY_D. And myself, Dan Stratford, right here on the DFS Early Bird, presented by Osmo.com.